So are we likely to see a repeat of the protests that have taken place around the world this weekend? In other words, has this thing got stamina? Joining us from our Westminster studios are the Guardian columnist Polly Toynbee and also Jonathan Isaby, political director of the Taxpayers Alliance. Thank you both for joining us. Mr. Isaby, if I could start with you. The protesters in St Paul's, do you think they're just an irritation, or do you think they've got a right to be there?
Well, I mean, clearly everyone has a right to peaceful protest in this country, but when it looks like they're starting to set up camp that's going to cause all kinds of chaos for the days and possibly even weeks to come, it's not particularly helpful, particularly not when their message is absurdly simplistic. They seem to be blaming people in the City of London for everything that's gone wrong in the economy over the last 2 or 3 years. Well, frankly, bankers have been working via a profit motive for decades, nay centuries, and they've got to actually look at some of the other issues, such as how banking was regulated over the last 10 years, and to consider the message that came out from politicians over the last 10 years too, as to why we're in the state we are. Polly
Toynbee, is that the way to look at this?
I think they're right that they should be going for a quite simple message, that this is not acceptable. 99% of the people are going to see their real standard of living drop by 7%, according to the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Everybody is suffering except the people who caused this. Taxpayers bailed out these banks for a fortune, has left us in crippling debt. And the result is the bank is still paying themselves walloping great bonuses, millions a year, billions in all, quite extraordinary. While the chief executives of our FTSE 100 companies, which have not been doing very well, have paid themselves huge amounts of money, much greater increases than the value of their companies have increased by. This can't go on indefinitely. This is galloping inequality. It's a dysfunction like the last days of the Roman Empire.
Fine, but Polly Toynbee, is this the way to go about that analysis? We know and are familiar with that analysis of the problem, but these protests on Wall Street, around the world, in Rome and in London, is that the way to galvanise popular opinion in the direction that they want to go?
Well, would you be talking to us now at the very top of the news if they weren't out there in their tents? They may look like, raggle-taggle lot of protesters, but the truth is they've got people talking. This is happening everywhere, in every capital, from Sarajevo to Hong Kong to Tokyo to right across Europe, everywhere. People have come out with just the gut feeling there has to be a better way. This can't be the right way. It cannot be that the rich can go on getting extravagantly richer, the top 1%, while the vast majority of the people can feel in their pockets that everything's getting worse from them, saddled with heavy debts, 14% fuel price rises. It's just not tolerable. And I think that, up with this we will not put is a perfectly good slogan.
I think we're so careful here not to go into the realms of just bashing capitalism, which is effectively what Polly has just been doing and what a lot of the protesters appear to be doing outside. Capitalism is the system which over the past century has every generation doubled people's wealth. It's the system which has put clothes on those people's backs, doubtless with designer labels as well. And we've got to be careful not to condemn that system, but to look at specifically the regulatory framework around the City of London, which clearly wasn't right a few years ago. And the previous government needs to look at itself and ask questions as to whether it had done the right things in the city with regard to that. But as to the wider question, the people now protesting evidently during the course of next week will do far more good for the economy if they were to start working and doing something useful to get the wheels of the economy turning, rather than disrupting the City of London over the days to come.
How dare you say if they should be working? 1 million young people are out of work. A lot of them are graduates. A lot of them are willing to work as interns for nothing at all, with nowhere to live and no money to live on. The idea that these are idle, feckless, useless people. You call yourself the Taxpayers Alliance. If you stood for taxpayers, you'd be out there with them, campaigning against the amount of taxpayers' money that has been spent propping up banks that give nothing back, holding back their money, not lending to small businesses as they said they would, quantitative easing, we're going to have another lot, all the money poured into their pockets, they hold on to it. It isn't about anti-capitalism, it's about bad capitalism. We know perfectly well that the countries with good capitalism, such as the Scandinavian countries, where there is very strict regulation, a much fairer distribution of wealth, also have much stronger economies than ours has ever been. We have one of the worst capitalist systems in the world. because we've lost out in every way.
Perfect. I'm saying there has been problems with regulation over the last decade, but we need to look at those, work out what went wrong, and decide how to move forward from there, rather than being incredibly generalistic about bankers are greedy, capitalism is bad, and let's try and stop the system.
Jonathan Isaby, can I just...
We've had nothing from the Taxpayers Alliance except support for the very, very rich, support for the city, support for the big business that sponsors you, that pays for you because you're a Conservative Party front movement. We've had nothing from you about standing on the side of median families on median wages who are really, really suffering, and it really matters. And this is going to spark something much more than you quite realise.
Jonathan Isaby and Polly Toynbee, thanks very much. That's a good point to leave that there. Thank you both for giving us your views on this issue.